Now, Central Oregon's local alert weather with Eric Oren.
Well, a happy Tuesday to all of you. We're starting things off right now with a look at current conditions in the state. Now, we're looking at the 30s, the 40s, and even the 50s, all the way into the 60s. We're going to be well above average temperature-wise today, and definitely some rain in the forecast. Locally, maybe a chance before around 10 a.m. and then a little later this afternoon as well. But as I mentioned, going to be warming up to a fairly warm day. Here's a look at your workday forecast in Bend. High is 60 degrees. Wind out of the south for the most part in the 15 to 20 mile an hour range. So a little breezy, similar to the pattern we saw yesterday, and gusts of closer to 25 miles an hour are certainly possible. Sunrise around 7:24 this morning. By the time you're headed in, you should be close to around 51 degrees. And by the time you're headed home from work, we're in the 53-degree range. And of course, sun setting a little before that at around 4:26 p.m. Now here is a look at some weather headlines for you. We do see a mild pattern in the forecast, at least through the midweek. Things will start to cool down a little bit Thursday going into Friday, and that's when we see a chance for that wintry mix of precipitation. We also see some melting snowpack. Until then, snow levels are very high. As of this morning, 9,000 to 10,000 feet. So that snowpack is melting, and of course, rain in the forecast causing area waterways to increase in level. So if you live near one of those, definitely something to keep in mind. There is potential for some flood-like behavior. Cooler later in the week, as I mentioned to you, Thursday going into Friday, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Here is a look at the satellite and radar in the Pacific Northwest. There's that heavy band of moisture that you're seeing affect the northwest part of Oregon and into Washington, and it's heavily in place early this morning. And let's take a look at what that is. That's called an atmospheric river event. It's a narrow band of high moisture, and that's aiding in very heavy precipitation. And you can see the areas outlined in green being affected, and the ones in blue there, that's where that flood potential is. And let's take a look at some of those ramifications to this atmospheric river event. There's a little closer look at the areas affected. Now, we do have a flood watch in place until Wednesday afternoon, and that's going to be expiring probably around 4 o'clock, and that's most of the coast there, as you can see, and into Washington as well. And then a little more specifically until around 1 a.m. on Thursday, we do see a flood advisory in place, and the areas affected there in green along the I-5 corridor. Definitely something to keep in mind if that's your commute route or if that's where you live. Current winds right now fairly calm in some areas, and then starting to get a little more breezy, closer to around 15 miles an hour. And they're going to pick up a little bit today. As I mentioned, a little later this afternoon, there's a chance we'll see gusts closer to around 25 miles an hour as we make our way through the forecast day. Here's a look at your current temperatures in the area. We're seeing a warm day, as I mentioned to you, the 40s, 50s, and even 61 degrees in Warm Springs there as we make our way towards a very warm afternoon. Here's what the highs for the day sit. As I mentioned to you, we're looking at around 60 degrees in Bend, Sun River and Lapine 54 and 55 degrees respectively on the cooler side of the spectrum, and then Warm Springs up at 64 degrees. The rest of the forecast area somewhere in the upper 50s to low 60s as we take a look here at your overnight lows. A little bit warmer than yesterday. We're in the 30s and 40s, and it's going to be not so chilly tonight, but definitely we might have a little precipitation going into the early morning. So let's take a quick look at your 7-day forecast here. You see that wintry mix of precipitation headed our way overnight there. Oh, sorry, I got a little excited and want to tell you all about the snow report. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast. As you see that wintry mix of precipitation Wednesday and potentially even Thursday, and then temperatures getting back to a more seasonable range by the weekend, and we definitely see a little more precipitation possibly coming our way, but those overnight lows climb out of the 20s and into the 30s by late weekend and early next week. That's been your local alert weather.